Campaigners are hoping to make Norwich a dementia-friendly city, but will it make a difference, and where will the money come from? Good evening. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease are now the biggest killer of adults in England and Wales. It's overtaken heart disease and now accounts for 11% of all deaths. So with more people living longer and being diagnosed with the disease, how are we going to care for them all? Here in Norfolk, charities are trying to make a difference by launching a campaign to make Norwich a dementia-friendly city. Christina Brinkley's been hearing from one family who's been affected by the illness.
Always seen the silver line on every darkened cloud.
The song devoted to a granny living with dementia. Bitter Maize was written by Ellie Hitchcock Wyatt from Norwich for her 81-year-old nan who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2014. She lives nearby and gets regular visits, as well as helping out in her beloved garden. Her condition's now at an advanced stage, but she's heard Ellie's work and is one of her biggest fans.
I don't think she really understood, what the song was about, or the things that I was saying, or even that it was about her. I don't think she really got that. She was just, supporting me and clapping and being a lovely granny. But for me, it was, although it was difficult for me to play that, especially to her, I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I got the chance to.
Ellie is backing a new campaign to make Norwich a so-called dementia-friendly city, boosting awareness and helping those living with the condition. Today, organisers met at the forum to launch a Dementia Action Alliance, a move backed by businesses and groups here. Among the project's plans is encouraging people to become dementia friends.
There are training courses and sessions that are run all around the city. They're free to attend. It can be as little as a 1-hour session. You can go into it in more depth. It's about understanding a little bit more about what dementia is, understanding how it affects people, and then just learning some of the things that we all could do differently ourselves that would make life easier for people if they are affected by it.
Around 14,000 people in Norfolk are living with dementia, a figure that's expected to grow to around 19,000 by 2025. They all require care, and among those at today's launch was Dave Gudgeon, who looked after his wife Irene for more than 4 years. He helped with everything from cooking and cleaning to helping her get dressed. She died last summer, but Dave's still helping those with dementia and their carers.
My wife was a very capable lady and she just disappeared. She just disappeared. It's awful. It is really, really awful. So yes, I do think the city would benefit from being dementia friendly. Not just the sufferers and the carers, but the city itself.
Well, here to talk about dementia is Susan Ringwood from Age UK, who you saw at that meeting last week. Also with us, Caroline Ackroyd, who cares for her husband. Also on the panel this evening, Willie Cruikshank, who's the director of Norfolk and Suffolk Dementia Alliance, and Christine Morgan, who manages the Claremont House and Lodge, which is a residential nursing home in Caister. So, Susan Ringwood, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do it now?
It's the right time and the right place. We know Norwich is already a friendly city. We want to make it a place that's equally friendly for people living with dementia, their family and friends. There are so many people already starting on this work in the city. We wanted to bring them together, give them a platform and encourage them to do a little bit more.
And why would it make a difference to you and the challenges that you face in your life?
I've already seen it making a difference to me, and it makes a difference because people understand and because it's possible for the person you care for to continue with their normal life. And I'm working in Eton to chair a steering group, and we're doing as much as we can for people, and all sorts of businesses involved along with Age UK, and it's just amazing when people understand.
Okay, it's amazing, but what will it look like? How will we know the difference?
We will know the difference because people that are living with dementia and the people that care for them will feel more comfortable going around the city. They'll feel more comfortable going into the shops and spending the money in the city and using the leisure facilities. And as we've heard, it's about continuing to do all the things you used to do before dementia came along. It's just being able to continue doing life as normal. We know that people with dementia tell us that one of the greatest emotions they feel when they go into somewhere like a city is fear. And what we're trying to do, the work that Susan's leading in Norwich, is to try and mitigate that fear so people feel comfortable continuing everyday life.
And is that the kind of thing you're hearing from the people who come to your nursing home?
Yeah, there's a lot of unsafe people outside in the community at the moment, and the families are looking for support. I think that's where care homes need to be working with families and the Alzheimer's Society and ladies like Caroline to get that across to them, that there is people out there that can make them feel safe, and we need to work together to do that.
What will a dementia-friendly city look like? I mean, how will it be different?
Well, it'll be a city that has a significant number of people who understand and know a little bit more about how dementia affects individuals, so that they can bear that in mind when they're offering their services, the businesses they run, whatever they're doing in the city, to make it a place that someone living with dementia feels welcome, accepted and understood. So some of it's about understanding, a bit more knowledge, and then some parts are about, we maybe need to change some of the things we do in the city.
So practical things like signage?
Might be some things about signage, might be some things about, layout of stores, simple things like that that people have told us would make all the difference to them. It isn't about money, most of it's about hearts and minds.
Okay, and what kind of things do you think would make a big difference to your family?
I think when people understand what the problems are and are willing to slow down and take time, so, I could give you loads of examples.
Well, give me an example.
Well,
do people
right.
not understand? What kind of things happens to you?
Well, in the first place, around the time that David was diagnosed with dementia, he was volunteer. He'd been a volunteer for 17 years with an organisation, and the way they set about letting him go was very confusing for him and very upsetting, and it's taken him a long time to actually get over the way he felt at that time. At around the same time, he went into a shop in Norwich where he got in a muddle. I went in a few days later to say thank you, and the man in there said, "Oh, my father-in-law's got Alzheimer's." And he left David feeling not stupid, bit of a joke. It was fine. So it just makes a world of difference. And already, people are doing the 1 hour sessions or whatever they're doing. I can see the difference.
And how do we need to change? I mean, what do we need to do differently?
One of the things that happened last year, led by a bunch of employers and providers in the city, was to look at producing a good guide for HR professionals. Because as well as having customers that might be coming into your store with the symptoms of dementia, you may have staff that are living with dementia, and increasingly these days you have staff that are caring for someone with dementia. So it's understanding the HR implications of dealing with members of staff or volunteers that are living with it, but also people understand the pressures on a young employee with young children and the demands of that, but don't necessarily give the same sort of leeway when you've got a member of staff that's got the challenge of caring for an elderly parent at home. So it's getting all those kind of things into just natural ways of doing business.
And how is the care different for those patients with dementia that you have? And what do you have to do differently? I mean, do you have to simplify things? Do you have to make things plainer?
Every resident that comes into the Claremont is very different, so we have to make it very personal centred, and I think that's what's important out in the community. No person going into a shop will treat that shop in the same. The environment needs to be dementia friendly, like you've said, but we also need to be looking at sharing the expertise. So if the whole homes work together to kind of share the expertise, bring people into it, so we can show them what we do on a day-to-day basis, like first thing in the morning. It's really important to get that right, so of course the day will go better. Just a simple thing about how somebody's dressed, what they're wearing, is it right for the right kind of weather? It's all important, because most people at that stage, when they've done something that's not quite right, that will impact on the rest of the day and how people perceive them.
The difficulty is, I suppose, that some people might say, well, this is not realistic, and dementia affects about maybe 1% of the population. That's still quite a small number. Is it realistic to achieve this?
I absolutely think it is, because that everybody has the right to expect the best possible life that they can. Age UK, our mission is to make later life the best it can be for everyone, and that includes those people living with dementia. But that 1% have family and friends and carers. They're surrounded by 10 or 20 more people who are also affected when one person has this condition. So it's more than 1% of the population
affected.
What do you want to add, Caroline?
Well, I also think that the application is not just for people who have dementia.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, you may spend some money, and it's not a lot of money that you need to spend, but, you know, for example, taxis. I know that taxi drivers are doing the Dementia Friends sessions. I've seen the end product of that. You know, when they come to our house.
How is it different?
Oh, come and sit in the front, I'll put your seatbelt on for you, take your time, you know, a completely different way of being. But that could apply also to somebody who'd got learning difficulties of some sort or other. So I think it's got an application across society, not just people with dementia.
And I think the 1% figure maybe paints a slightly optimistic picture for people out there. It's important to realise that although dementia is not a natural part of ageing, age is the biggest risk factor for developing the symptoms. And actually, it's about a 1 in 20 chance if you're in your 60s,
Yes.
1 in 10 in your 70s, 1 in 5 in your 80s, 1 in 3 in your 90s. And when you think that life expectancy in Norfolk now is just nudging 90, 1 in 3 people are likely to develop dementia before they die. Now that's a very different figure to 1%.
Yes.
And
it's important we do this.
It's particularly for this county, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
and isn't the youngest person in Norfolk at the moment 46?
36.
36.
Can happen to younger people
So
too.
we're not
Yeah.
just talking about the sort of grey people at the other end of the spectrum.
No,
We're talking quite young people.
we have a young lady in her 50s already in the Claremont, whose family couldn't meet her needs at home. And yes, it is in her best interest at the moment to be there, but if they'd have known a few more details maybe earlier on, when the early stages of dementia was there, that might not be in the case, and I think that's where we need to move forward to,
No, I agree.
because we need to get that help to them sooner rather than later.
And that's one of the challenges with becoming a dementia-friendly city is
Yes.
people with dementia don't look like a specific case.
can't-
You know,
you can't
everyone
spot
looks
them.
completely different.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
to assume that somebody will walk in looking like this because they have dementia, you have to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
more aware than that.
Yeah.
People might wonder about the cost though, of making this happen. What's it going to cost? Where's the money going to come from?
I'm not sure we are talking about a cost, because I said it's mostly about hearts and minds. It's people having that understanding, that awareness. And there are direct benefits to businesses too. If more people feel able to come and, you know, come to your shop, visit the cinema, go to take part in the leisure activities. Right now they're probably staying at home, not being able to contribute in that way. So we're not asking for huge amounts of money to be spent on this.
Mostly
get-
training, is that the plan?
And that's freely available, so there's no
Yes.
cost for that training. That's freely available. We're providing that. Other members of the Alliance are providing that for free, because it's part of our purpose to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it does have a knock-on effect. I was saying earlier that there's a store in Norwich which has just, you know, become part of Norwich being dementia friendly, and they actually said to me, if ever you would like David to come and sit in here with us while you shop, that would be good. So, you know, that's got a knock-on effect for them.
Yep.
And for me and for
Sounds
David.
sounds
So
really good.
No cost involved.
Brilliant.
And
Okay.
I think we could be very helpful for that. The Claremont, we try to get to know everybody out in the community as friends and families, and when we visit shops they get to know our residents. But we could make that better by taxi drivers, for instance. They
And
could
working.
come and talk to us. We could share the skills that we've got from working with people in the home, but also the expertise and experience we've had from all the families that we talk to.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, we must stop you there. We're going to take a break, but do stay with us, because we'll be talking more about dementia and what can be done to help the rising number of patients and carers in Norfolk. Welcome back. Tonight we're talking about dementia after charities in Norfolk launched a campaign to make Norwich a dementia-friendly city. It's estimated around 16,000 people in Norfolk are living with the condition. That's about 1 person in every 53, higher than the national average. Last year, the overall financial cost of dementia in the UK was £26 billion. So are we doing enough to support people with the condition? And what more can be done when NHS and social care budgets are under pressure? Here to talk about this from Age UK is Susan Ringwood and carer Caroline Ackroyd. Also on the panel this evening is Willie Cruikshank from Norfolk and Suffolk Dementia Alliance and Christine Morgan, who runs a care home in Caister. So we are looking at current trends, increasing numbers of people being diagnosed. Does it worry you how we're going to care for all these people in the future?
certainly the current model of care is unsustainable. So we just haven't got enough capacity for the rising projected demand of elder people in the county or nationally. Right at the moment, we know of dozens of people every day that are trying to find home care suppliers across the county and just not being able to find anything. I was chatting to a home care provider yesterday who was the 40th company someone had phoned up saying, can you help? So we're in a really difficult position there, that it's not even that people can't afford it, even when they have the money, they can't find the service to provide it. And that's why making society better to look after people in normal community life is one of the ways to move things forward.
Is that your experience, Christine Morgan? Is there just too much pressure on services at the moment?
Too much pressure. Families we speak to don't like the paperwork they have to fill in, don't know what to do with it when they've got it, and don't know where to go for support, full stop. So come to a care home expecting that's the only place that they can go. It is a very good place to go if that's right for that person, but it has to be at the right time. So I think we need to find more support jointly with the care homes and the support groups that go outside to educate people.
Do people come to you too soon?
I've had people that have come too soon, but we've been successful in rehabilitating those people and they've gone back home. We've done two this year in particular, and the family have been so grateful for that opportunity. A care home don't mean they've got to be there for life. It's about getting the skills and experience that we've got to support them to get through and get a quality of life. Every individual, has different needs, and I think that's where we need to focus on outside in the community.
Susan Maywood, dementia cost the taxpayer about 17 billion 10 years ago, and that's risen by about 10 billion. Are you worried there's not going to be enough money to go around to look after people in the future?
I think, as Willie said, we've got to make sure that we use the money we've got in the best possible way, and that's making sure we get help to people as early as possible, and that we help them and their families care for them for as long as they possibly can. That's what people want.
But we know council budgets are really tight, aren't they? And adult social care may well be cut.
We are, but it's still about using what money we've got as best as we can, because too often we hear we leave it really, really late till people's circumstances are so difficult. I think of my own situation. My father had dementia, he died recently, but my mother was looking after him aged 85. Now, with all of the help we were able to put into the home, and my husband and I really making sure they got all the support they needed, my father only needed to go into nursing care for the last 6 months of his life. Other people don't know what they can do to keep people safe and at home as long as possible. That's a better use of that bit of money we have got. Spend it early and wisely, and not just wait until things get so difficult that maybe both my parents could have ended up needing care if we hadn't got the support for them early enough.
I just want to ask Caroline Ack, what's your experience? Are you getting the support you need?
Well, it's an interesting one because, when the person you care for is diagnosed, that's it, and then there is nothing. I've been fortunate in meeting up with Age UK, who've actually just helped me to fill in the attendance allowance form, and we've now got an attendance allowance for David, which means that we're going to be able to buy some sort of gear that is going to help him with knowing what time of day it is and all that kind of thing. Practical things. But filling in that form is actually quite daunting, and getting it right. So, I'm fortunate in that I've tapped into people who can help me.
And would that have been very difficult without the support, do you feel?
I think it would have been. The form itself, I think, would have been difficult. So one of our aims, I keep going on about Eton, but one of our aims is to almost have a database so that we can say to people, look, this is who you can go to. And we're looking at champions in our streets, to find out who needs that help. And then who they can go to, what we can provide, where else we can send them to.
Christine Morgan.
Yeah, what we've done at the Claremont, we've got to know our residents very early stages of dementia. So before they've needed a home, we make contact with those families. They can come in on a day-to-day basis just for an hour, have meals with different people. They come on respite, that helps the carers to get that little rest that they need. And then when it's time to come in, actually, they know the environment, they know the people who are in there, so it isn't a very big difference, and so it doesn't alter the stages of dementia, which it can do. It can impact very quickly if too many moves are done.
One of the big things that differentiates dementia from other health conditions is that it's generally not funded by health. It's funded through social care. And that means that in Norfolk, more people have to pay for it themselves than actually funded by the council. So when you say 26 billion cost the taxpayer, in fact, about 18 billion of that is funded by self-funded people. The cost to the state of dementia is less than 50% of the overall cost. In Norfolk now, 53% of residential care is self-funded by people themselves, not by the council tax.
It can depend, because Great Yarmouth, actually being the area that it is, we do have a lot of social services come to the Claremont, because that's the only place that they can be funded, because again, they haven't got a lot of choice sometimes as well. If they haven't got payment, which shouldn't be the case, this choice should still be the same. But it is a lot down to the funding. I
wonder though, Christine, is it going to be difficult in the future as the minimum wage rises for you to continue to keep your business going?
Yeah, because it's not just about, it's the pay obviously that you've got to pay the staff to come in, and you want the expert staff to be in there. But it's about the equipment that you use and the things you want to make the home to be dementia friendly. Because if you're doing a personal centred care, then you have to have the right things in place for each person, not just for the home. And that is not cost effective. I'm lucky to be with Healthcare Homes, who are a very good group and have put a lot of money into the home and have made it quite modern and how it should be for everybody to enjoy a normal life. But you don't always have that in older buildings.
Do we think Norfolk needs additional help? Because as we've said, we do have a very old population in Norfolk. Does central government need to look upon us differently?
I think there are kind of criteria how they work out how much money we get through to the authorities to be able to pay for the care we're getting. But I mean, Willie made the really good point there. Most people are funding their own care very significantly, and you have to have very modest means indeed before you're eligible for the kind of support that comes from the local authorities. So it is a very complex picture out there.
And I think it's a concern, from the carer's point of view. Obviously, you want the person you care for to be at home with you for as long as possible. But, the point might come when it might not be possible. How do you pay for it? I think is a huge concern because you want good care.
Yeah. As always, you've been getting in touch on social media. Susan Cripps-Fuller says, my mum has dementia. It's the most painful thing to watch her getting worse, and there's nothing I can do. Mike Goff also says the NHS needs more cash to survive, yet alone treat dementia. He says, my dad had dementia before he died 2 years ago, and he had it for 8 years. He said there was very little help and knout in the community. Do you recognise that? Is that what other parents and carers and patients are saying?
I think we hear that quite a lot, when actually what they really mean is they're not aware of or can't find what's out in the community. And things like the stuff that Susan's team provides and the communities like Eton and all around the county. I mean, there are already 15 dementia-friendly market towns around the county that are building up. There's lots going on, but it's very difficult to find out where it is, which is why last year the website dementiafriendlynorfolk.com set up, which is a website to try and promote and steer people towards a lot of these support services that are out there, most of them free.
Okay, I mean, has that been your experience? You speak to other people who've just not known what's out there?
Yeah, I think that's true. But I do think from that point of view, the dementia-friendly thing is a wonderful initiative and not costly, and is a whole way forward for people in letting people know what's going on and how they can get help. And a lot of it is from volunteers. And it is amazing how people take up the baton, which is so encouraging, that you start something and people are saying, right, okay, we'll do this.
In a nutshell, one key thing you'd like to see change for people with dementia in the county, what would it be?
It's an equality issue. So it's making sure that people living with dementia are included and involved and listened to in the same way that anybody else is.
Okay, and for you, what would you like to see change most of all?
Just being able to live in your community and be accepted as much as possible.
Willie, what would you like to see change for the better?
I'd like to see people with dementia saying that they don't fear going out of their houses as much as they currently do.
And for you?
For me, is to be in touch with the residents at an earlier stage, so we can build a rapport with them before they have to come into their care home. So that's joint working with all these people that are on board.
And if you're affected, if someone's watching this and they're affected, what are the things that they need to be thinking about? Where can they go for help and support?
They should certainly get information, find out as much as they can. Everyone's affected differently by dementia. It has lots of different types and it affects people in different ways. So get information, find out where that help is available, go onto the dementia-friendly sites, come to Age UK, ask questions and don't take no for an answer.
And one important thing there as well is that quite often the symptoms of dementia are not dementia. So go to your GP, because what you think might be dementia might be something else that's completely curable. Go to see your doctor.
Thank you all very much. We are out of time this evening. Thank you to my guests for taking part. And that's all we've got time for this evening. Good night.